I found my husband with my son's girlfriend. Broken heart. What I discovered shocked me. I never imagined that when I opened that door, I would find the end of two lives at the same time. It was an ordinary Tuesday, one of those when the sun shines warmly through the kitchen window and the coffee smells like every morning for the past 20 years. I was preparing breakfast when I heard a strange noise coming from the guest room, the one we almost never used because it was at the back of the house, next to the garden. A loud thud, followed by a silence that made my skin crawl. I thought maybe it was the cat, or something had fallen from the cupboard. I put the cup on the table and walked down the hallway, barefoot, feeling the cold tiles beneath my feet. I didn't know that at that moment, my life was about to be ripped in two. Before continuing, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and tell me where you're watching from. My name is Alicia, I'm 34 years old, and until that Tuesday, I thought I knew my life. I thought I knew my husband, Roberto, to whom I'd been married for 18 years. We met when I was 16 and he was 20, at a fair in the town where I grew up. He sold tools with his father, and I helped my mother at a tamale stand. I remember him coming over to buy some and telling me I had the saddest eyes he'd ever seen. I didn't know if it was a compliment or a cruel remark, but something in his voice made me smile. From that day on, we were inseparable. We married 2 years later, when I became pregnant with Matteo. It was a quick marriage, at the civil registry, with only our families present. My mother cried the whole time, I don't know if from happiness or fear for me. Roberto was a good man, hardworking, quiet, the kind who doesn't say, I love you, every day but is there, steadfast, like a tree that provides shade without asking for anything in return. Matteo was born in December, with the cold biting our bones and the heating broken. Roberto worked double shifts for months to buy us a small house on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't much, but it was ours. 3 bedrooms, a garden where Matteo learned to walk, and a kitchen where I spent the afternoons cooking while listening to the radio. The years passed quickly, as they always do when you're busy surviving. Roberto became the manager of a hardware store, and I got a job at an elementary school as an administrative assistant. Matteo grew up healthy, intelligent, with that smile that lights up any room. He was my pride, my reason for getting up every morning. At 17, he met Valeria. Valeria appeared in our lives like a gust of fresh air. She was a pretty girl with green eyes and brown hair that fell in soft waves over her shoulders. She was 19 years old, studying nursing, and working weekends at a downtown cafe. Matteo brought her home one Sunday, nervous, with sweaty hands and that lovelorn puppy dog look that young people have when they think they've found the love of their life. I remember preparing baked chicken and salad, and Valeria helping me set the table without me even asking. I liked that about her from the start, that natural politeness, that way she looked into my eyes when she spoke. Roberto also seemed to approve. After dinner, when Matteo walked her to the door, Roberto said to me, she's a good girl. I hope she lasts. And I nodded, feeling a strange warmth in my chest, as if I were watching my son grow into a man before my eyes. The following months were happy. Valeria came to our house often, sometimes staying for dinner, other times just stopping by to say hello before heading off to work. Matteo was radiant, talking about plans, studying together, traveling when they finished college. I watched them from the kitchen, sitting on the couch, laughing about things only they understood, and I felt like everything was in place. Roberto seemed happy too. He came home from work earlier, joked with Matteo, and asked Valeria about her studies. There was a harmony in the house we hadn't had in years, as if that girl's presence had brought a new light into our lives. I never suspected anything. I never saw the signs. Or maybe I didn't want to see them. Everything started to change in March. Small details that I initially ignored because they seemed insignificant. Roberto started coming home late from work, always with reasonable excuses, inventory, meetings, supplier issues. Valeria stopped coming in as often, and when she did, she seemed distracted, nervous, and avoided my gaze. Matteo didn't notice anything, or so I thought. He was so in love that he couldn't see beyond his own happiness. I didn't want to be alarmed either. I thought they were just coincidences, that I was imagining things because I hadn't slept well in months, with that anxiety that tightens my chest for no apparent reason. But there was something in the air, something heavy and dark that I couldn't name. One afternoon, I found a strange perfume on Roberto's shirt, sweet and floral, nothing I wore. I asked him, and he told me he'd hugged a colleague who was celebrating a birthday. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. The Tuesday I mentioned at the beginning, Roberto had left early. He told me he had to open the hardware store because the manager was sick. Matteo had gone to college and wouldn't be back until the afternoon. I was home alone, enjoying the silence, that rare moment when you don't have to be a mother or a wife, just yourself. I was drinking coffee when I heard the noise. A dull thud coming from the back of the house. I put down the cup and walked slowly, sensing something wasn't right. The guest room door was ajar. We never left that door open. I approached and pushed gently, and what I saw took the air from my lungs. Roberto was there. With Valeria. Both of them naked, tangled in the sheets I'd washed myself the week before. They didn't see me right away. They were too absorbed in each other, their bodies moving with a familiarity that told me this wasn't the first time. It wasn't a mistake, it wasn't a slip. This had been going on for a while. I froze in the doorway, unable to scream, unable to move. My brain tried to process what I was seeing but couldn't. It was like watching a horror movie where you're the lead character but you don't remember agreeing to the role. Then Valeria opened her eyes and saw me. Her face transformed into pure panic. She yelled something, pushed Roberto, and he turned to me with that expression I'll never forget. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't embarrassment. It was annoyance. As if I were a hindrance, a nuisance who had interrupted something important. "Alicia," he said, and his voice sounded distant, as if coming from the bottom of a well. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I felt like my body was disintegrating, that my legs were going to give out at any moment. Valeria covered herself with the sheet, crying, saying things I couldn't understand because there was a ringing in my ears that blocked everything out. Roberto got up, reached for his clothes, tried to get closer to me. "Let me explain," he said, but I backed away. I didn't want him to touch me. I didn't want to hear anything. I turned and left that room, that house, not knowing where I was going. I walked down the street under the morning sun, my heart beating so hard I thought it would burst. People looked at me strangely, probably because I was barefoot, still wearing my apron, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. I don't know how long I walked. I ended up at the park where I used to take Mateo when he was a kid. I sat on a bench, the same one where he used to swing for hours, and tried to breathe. I tried to think. But my mind was a mess of images, of unanswered questions. How long had this been going on? How had I not noticed? What was I going to say to Mateo? My son. My little boy. How do you tell your son that his father is sleeping with his girlfriend? How do you destroy his world like that? I felt nauseous. I leaned forward and vomited on the grass, emptying everything inside me, as if I could also expel the pain, the betrayal, the rage that was beginning to grow in my chest like a malignant tumor. I returned home at dusk. I don't know why I returned. Maybe because I had nowhere else to go. Maybe because I needed answers. Roberto was sitting in the living room, waiting for me. Valeria was no longer there. The house smelled of her perfume, the same one I had found on his shirt weeks ago. He looked at me with those eyes that had once seemed warm to me and now I saw only coldness. "We need to talk," he said. I laughed. It was a dry, bitter laugh that came from my soul. "Talk?" I repeated. "What do you want to talk about, Roberto? How long have you been fucking your son's girlfriend? How many times did they do it in our house, in our bed maybe?" He looked down. "It wasn't in our bed," he said, as if that made any difference. I sat down across from him, feeling like my legs wouldn't hold me up anymore. "Tell me," I said. "Tell me everything. I deserve at least that much." Roberto took a deep breath. He looked older suddenly, with wrinkles I hadn't noticed before around his eyes. "It started 6 months ago," he said. "She came one day when you weren't there. Mateo wasn't there either. She needed to talk to someone about her problems with her family. We had coffee. We talked. And I don't know how it happened, Alicia. It was a moment of weakness. I tried to stop it afterward, I swear. But she sought me out. She told me I was the only one who understood her. And I felt alive again. With you, everything had become routine, obligation. With her, it was different." I listened to his words and felt like each one was a stab. "Routine?" I said. "Obligation? I spent 18 years of my life building this family. Raising your son. Working, cooking, cleaning, supporting you when you lost jobs, when your mother died, when you had that depression that almost killed you. And now it turns out it was an obligation." Roberto looked up, and for the first time I saw tears in his eyes. "I didn't mean it like that," he murmured. "But it's the truth, isn't it?" I replied. "You don't love me anymore. Maybe you never loved me. It was just convenient to have me here, the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect idiot who didn't notice anything." "And her?" I asked. "What does Valeria feel? Or is this just another of your moments of weakness?" Roberto was silent. That silence told me everything I needed to know. "She says she loves me," he said finally. "She says she wants to be with me. That she's going to leave Mateo." I felt the floor open beneath my feet. "Is she going to leave Mateo?" I repeated. "And you? Are you going to leave your family for a 19-year-old girl? Are you going to destroy your son on a whim?" Roberto stood up, walked to the window. "It's not a whim," he said. "It's complicated. I don't expect you to understand." I stood up too, feeling the rage finally explode inside me. You're right, I said. I don't understand. I don't understand how the man I married, the man who held our son when he was born, turned into this. A coward. A traitor. That night I didn't sleep. I lay awake in the bed I had shared with Roberto for almost 2 decades, staring at the ceiling, trying to decide what to do. He went to sleep on the couch. We didn't speak again. The next morning, Matteo arrived early. He was happy, with that energy that young people in love have. Mom, he said, Valeria and I are thinking about moving in together next year. I wanted to tell you first. He looked at me with those hopeful eyes, and I felt my heart shatter. How do I tell him? How do I break his heart like that? But I couldn't lie to him. I couldn't let him continue living in an illusion. Matteo, I said, my voice shaking. I need to tell you something. Please sit down. He sat down, the smile fading from his face. What's wrong, Mom? Are you sick? I shook my head. It's not that. It's about your father. And Valeria. I saw his expression change, confusion turning to fear. What's wrong with them? He asked. I took a deep breath. I found them together yesterday. In the guest room. They're in a relationship. The words tumbled out of my mouth like stones, heavy and destructive. Matteo looked at me blankly. What? He said. I don't understand. What do you mean, they're in a relationship? What you heard, I said, feeling tears streaming down my face. Your father and Valeria are having an affair. It's been going on for months. Matteo bolted upright. His face turned red, the veins in his neck popped out. You're lying, he said. You're making this up because... Why would I make something like this up? I interrupted. Do you think I want to destroy you? Do you think I want you to suffer? Matteo walked to the door, then stopped. Where is he? He asked. Where is my father? Matteo, please. I began, but he'd already left the kitchen. I heard him yell Roberto's name, heard hurried footsteps, and then a crash. I ran into the living room and saw Matteo on top of his father, hitting him, yelling things I couldn't make out. Roberto wasn't fighting back, just covering his face with his arms. Matteo, stop! I yelled, trying to separate them, but my son pushed me away with a gentle shove. He finally stopped, panting, tears streaming down his face. How could you? He said to Roberto. How could you do this to Mom? To me? To us? Roberto wiped the blood from his nose. I'm sorry, he murmured. I'm so sorry, son. Don't call me son, Matteo spat. Don't call me that again. Matteo left home that day. He packed his things and went to live with a friend. Before he left, he hugged me, and I felt his body tremble against mine. I'm sorry, Mom, he said. I'm sorry I didn't see anything. I'm sorry I brought that person into our house. It's not your fault, I said, stroking his hair like I had when he was a child. None of this is your fault. But I knew he didn't believe me. I knew he would blame himself for a long time. The next few days were hell. Roberto tried to talk to me several times, but I had nothing to say. He slept in the guest room, the same one where I had found them. I don't know why he chose that place. Maybe it was his way of punishing himself. Or maybe he just didn't care. One afternoon, 2 weeks after the discovery, the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there stood Valeria. Her eyes were red, swollen from crying. Alicia, she said. Please, I need to talk to you. My first instinct was to slam the door in her face, but something stopped me. Maybe curiosity. Maybe masochism. I let her in. We sat in the kitchen, at that same table where we had shared so many dinners. I don't know where to begin, she said, wringing her hands. There's nothing you can say that will justify what you did, I replied. I know, she said. I know, and I'm not here to justify myself. I need you to know it wasn't planned. It wasn't something I meant to happen. So why did it happen? I asked. Why did you keep coming to this house? Why did you keep looking me in the eyes, hugging me, calling me Mrs. Alicia like we were family? Valeria covered her face with her hands. Because I'm a coward, she said. Because I fell in love with the wrong person and didn't have the courage to walk away. Roberto made me feel special. He listened to me. He made me feel like I mattered. My family is a mess, Alicia. My father is an alcoholic, my mother blames me for everything. When I met Matteo, I thought I'd found a way out, a real family. And then Roberto started talking to me, asking me how I was, and I felt seen for the first time in my life. And Matteo? I asked. Didn't he make you feel seen? Valeria nodded. Yes, but he's different. Matteo is good, he's sweet, but he's young. He doesn't understand certain things. Roberto is a grown man, with experience, with that way of looking that makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. I felt disgusted. Roberto is a married man, I said. He's your boyfriend's father. At what point did you think this was right? I never thought it was right, she replied. Every time we were together, I hated myself. But I couldn't stop. It's like an addiction. I know it sounds horrible. I know I am horrible. So what now? I asked. What do you want from me? My blessing? My forgiveness? Valeria shook her head. I don't expect either. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I hurt Matteo. And I'm sorry that my stupidity destroyed a family. She stood up to leave, but before she reached the door, she turned around. One more thing, she said. Roberto doesn't love me. I know he told you he did, but it's not true. He loves you, Alicia. He always has. He's just confused, scared of getting older, of becoming irrelevant. I was a distraction. Nothing more. She left the house, and I sat there in the kitchen, processing her words. Did Roberto love me? Did that even matter now? Did the fact that he loved me make a difference if he'd chosen to betray me anyway? That night Roberto came home drunk. He smelled of cheap whiskey and desperation. He slumped onto the couch and looked at me with those glassy eyes. Valeria left me, he said. She told me she can't do this anymore. That she's leaving town. I didn't say anything. Are you not going to say anything? He asked. What do you want me to say? I answered. That I'm glad? That you deserve it? Yes, he said. Tell me I deserve it. Tell me I'm shit. Tell me something, Alicia, please. I stood up and walked toward him. I looked into his eyes and saw the man I had married, but I also saw a stranger. I'm not going to give you the comfort of my rage, I said. I'm not going to make this any easier for you. You're going to have to live with what you did. You're going to have to see the pain in your son's eyes every time he looks at you. And you're going to have to sleep every night knowing that you destroyed the only good thing you had. The following months were strange. Roberto and I continued living under the same roof, but we were like ghosts, passing by each other without touching, without speaking more than necessary. Matteo came to visit me, but he didn't want to see his father. Every time he came, I saw him thinner, sadder, with that dull light in his eyes that once shone so brightly. One day he said to me, Mom, why are you still with him? Why don't you kick him out? And I didn't know how to respond. Why did I stay? Out of habit? Out of fear? Out of that foolish hope that things could go back to the way they were? The answer came one July night. I was in bed, reading, when Roberto entered the room. He hadn't been in for months. He sat on the edge of the bed, his back to me. Alicia, he said. I need to tell you something. What? I asked, without looking up from the book. I have cancer, he said. Pancreatic. Stage 4. I have a few months left, maybe a year if I'm lucky. The book fell from my hands. I stared at his back, that back I knew so well, and I felt nothing. Emptiness. When did you find out? I asked. 3 weeks ago, he answered. That's why Valeria left me. Not because of guilt or remorse. Because she didn't want to deal with a dying man. And you're coming to tell me now because you want me to take care of you? I asked. Because you need a nurse? Roberto turned to me, and I saw tears in his eyes. I'm coming to tell you this because I owe you, he said. Because you've been the best thing in my life, and I ruined everything. And because I want to apologize. I really do. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every second of pain I caused you. I'm sorry for being so selfish, so stupid. I'm sorry for choosing one moment of pleasure over a lifetime of love. He cried. This man who never cried, who was always so strong, so restrained, cried like a child. And I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to hold him, to comfort him. Another part wanted to push him out of the room, out of the house, out of my life. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said finally. I don't know if I ever will. But I also can't leave you alone now. I'm not like that. Even if you are. Roberto nodded. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said. I'm just asking that you let me be here. With you. For as long as I have left. And that was how I spent the next 8 months caring for the man who had betrayed me. I took him to chemotherapy that didn't work. I held him when he vomited. I changed his sheets when he was too weak to move. I cooked his favorite meals even though he could barely eat. And in all that time, Matteo came to visit him only twice. The first time, he stayed for 10 minutes, sitting in a chair far from the bed, saying nothing. The second time, a week before Roberto died, he reached out and took his hand. I forgive you, Dad, he told him. Not for you. For me. Because I don't want to carry this hatred for the rest of my life. Roberto cried again. Thank you, son, he murmured. Thank you. Roberto died on a Tuesday in March, exactly 1 year after I discovered him with Valeria. It was peaceful, painless, surrounded by morphine and the dawn light coming through the window. I was holding his hand when he stopped breathing. I felt his body relax, him go, and I sat there, looking at him, trying to feel something. Sadness. Anger. Relief. But I only felt tiredness. A deep tiredness that reached my bones. The funeral was small. A few coworkers, some neighbors, Roberto's family came. Matteo was by my side the whole time, holding me up, being my strength when I had none. Valeria didn't come. I learned from a neighbor that he had gone to another city, that he was studying and working, trying to build a life far from the rubble he had left here. Weeks passed before I could enter the guest room again. I had avoided that place since that day, as if it were a cursed place. But I needed to clean it, I needed to get rid of the sheets, the furniture, everything that reminded me of what had happened there. I opened the door and the musty smell hit me. I started packing things into boxes when I found something under the bed. A notebook. I opened it and recognized Roberto's handwriting. It was some kind of diary. I hesitated to read it. Did I want to know what he was thinking? Did I want to get inside his head after all? But curiosity won out. I sat on the floor and began to read. The first few pages were about Valeria. About how he desired her, about the guilt he felt, about how he couldn't stop. I felt nauseous reading those lines, seeing his obsession captured on paper. But then, about halfway through the notebook, the tone changed. He began to write about me. About how he missed me. About how he realized he'd traded something real for something empty. Alicia is my home, he wrote in one entry. And I burned my home down for a fire that left me only ashes. Later he wrote, today I saw her cooking and remembered why I fell in love with her. Not for her beauty, although it is beautiful. Not for her patience, although it is infinite. I fell in love with her because she makes me want to be better. And I chose to be worse. I cried reading those words. I cried for everything we could have been and weren't. For everything we lost. For all the time wasted on pain and betrayal. I closed the notebook and put it in a box. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe because it was the last piece of Roberto I had left. Or maybe because I needed to remember that even at his worst, there was something real between us. Something worth it, even though he destroyed it. 2 years have passed since then. Matteo is fine. He has a new girlfriend, a sweet girl studying architecture. He introduced her to me a few months ago, and I liked her. I'm not trying to compare her to Valeria. There's no point in living in the past. Matteo is healing, and that's what matters. I'm healing too, although more slowly. I sold the house. I couldn't continue living there, with all those memories stuck to the walls. I moved to a small apartment near the center, with a large window overlooking a park. I went back to school, but now I work in the library. I like the silence, the smell of books, the peace that permeates the shelves. Sometimes I think about Roberto. I wonder if he ever truly loved me, or if I was just a habit that had become comfortable. I wonder if Valeria thinks about us, if she carries the guilt or if she's already overcome it. But I think about them less and less. I focus more and more on myself, on rebuilding the person I was before I became a wife, a mother, a victim. I'm learning to be alone without feeling alone. I'm learning that love isn't always enough, that trust once broken is never fully repaired, and that sometimes the person who hurts you the most is the one who promised to protect you. I don't know if I'll ever trust someone like that again. I don't know if I'll ever fall in love again. But I know I survived. I know I went through hell and came out the other side, burned but alive. And that has to count for something. There are still difficult days. Days when I wake up and feel that weight on my chest, that sadness that has no name. But there are also good days. Days when the sun shines through my window and makes me smile. Days when Matteo comes to visit me and we cook together, laughing at silly things. Days when I look in the mirror and recognize the woman I see, with her scars and her strength. This is my story. It's not pretty. It doesn't have a happy ending like the ones you see in the movies. But it's mine. And I'm sharing it with you because I know there's someone out there going through something similar. Someone who feels broken, betrayed, lost. I want you to know that you're not alone. That the pain doesn't last forever. That you can survive the worst and still find moments of light. It won't be easy. There will be nights you'll want to give up. But hang in there. Hang in there because you deserve better. Because your story doesn't end with someone else's betrayal. Your story is just beginning. I learned that true love doesn't always save, but it does teach us to endure.